This is an experiment I'm doing with my fermentation process. I want to see if I can sustain a living yeast starter formula, essentially, so that I can stop relying on importing packets from the outside world. That would be the holy grail for me, if I can sustain my own indefinite supply of yeast to be eating the sugars from fruit wines and honey wines that I'm making. So I've been making this honey wine for a long time now, for several years, adding the yeast packets, but this time I'm going to do an experiment where I'm going to see if the yeast layer that is just subsisting on the top of my rice wine fermentation jars, if I'm able to transplant that yeast culture to the mead or the honey wine jars and have them ferment without having to add from the yeast packets, which I'm not an expert. I don't know exactly what the different qualities of yeast are, if they change properties, if there's different types of species growing, but I'm going to trust or experiment, at least knowing that this has not caused me any harm so far. If I mix that in and drink it, it's not a problem. So we're going to find out if that yeast that is on the top of the rice jars, the rice fermentation jars, if that's going to effectively replace my need to buy the yeast packets from the outside. So I'm growing and sustaining a population. Already I see that they're responding, that they're kind of doing their thing. And this is over the course of several days here. Different temperatures affect the rate of growth for sure. But I went through a few days of not knowing for sure, being kind of concerned. And then that is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that rapid bubbles, effectively showing that it's consuming that honey. And already I checked the first attempt at this, the honey is already all completely dissolved into the water, meaning that it's been effectively stirred up by the living yeast. So this for me is very much a success. I'll know when I drink it. I've been smelling it and it smells fine. I'm looking forward to it. So that could mean that I just liberated myself potentially forever from having to buy yeast from the outside world, and I can just sustain it indefinitely, certainly through the warm seasons, and maybe have to save a reserve of the packets for the cool seasons where the fermentation is slower. The rice ferment is sustaining a permanent yield.